Rotation is quickly approaching. On September 28th of this year, Standard is going to lose Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, Shadows over Innistrad, and Eldritch Moon. Naturally, this causes most decks to rotate with those sets. We'll be left with Kaladesh, Aether Revolt, Amonkhet, Hour of Devastation, and Ixalan. Well, what if I told you that today we're looking at a deck that not only 100% survives rotation, but is also Tier 1 competitive, and is only $20 on Magic Online or $60 in paper? Yeah, this is real. Throughout the video, we'll be using MTGO Traders pricing to show you just how cheap the deck is, and if you want to see the list in full or purchase any of the cards for it, you can click the first link in the description. Seriously, $20 to survive rotation with a Tier 1 deck from Magic Online? I'm not joking. Hope you enjoy. There have been many iterations of Green-Red Pummeler, or some would call it Green-Red Energy, over the past 10 months, but with the release of Hour of Devastation, I think we're looking at this deck's final form, and it is sweet. As you can see, we're beginning with the namesake card in the deck, Electrostatic Pummeler. The entire reason this card is so bonkers is because of that dirty ability. Effectively doubling its power for 3 energy is insanity. The Pummeler wins games out of nowhere, and the rest of the deck is designed to help this construct do just that. Simple concept? Sure, but it did some serious work at the Pro Tour and is still going undefeated in Magic Online League, so maybe simple is best. After showcasing the Pummeler, we'll begin at the bottom of our creature curve with Longtusk Cub. Tried and true, this energy cat is devastatingly powerful if left unchecked. It punishes empty boards and gathers energy counters like they're tic-tacs. Solid 2-drop creature, great on offense, solid if you need a blocker, just an all-around good card. Of course, the same doesn't hold true for our next creature, Voltaic Brawler. It can be a decent defender, but that isn't what you're looking to do with him. Sure, a 3-2 for 2 is nice, and we'll take something down with it, but it gets 2 energy on entry to the battlefield, and whenever it attacks, you can make it a 4-3 with Trample until end of turn. Even if you disregard the fact that we want more energy for the Pummeler, the Brawler is powerful in its own right. Explosive early game swinger, almost unmatched by most other archetypes as a single 2-mana creature, certainly the most aggressive creature in the deck besides the Pummeler itself. The Brawler has a spot in this deck until whenever the deck dies. It's way too good to remove. Our final 2-drop creature is Servant of the Conduit, and this unassuming elf is one of the key cards we're running. In addition to providing a couple energy straight away, the Servant is a ramp and color fix machine. With all the other energy production in this deck, you can use that mana generation every turn if you want to. Servant can get you through Mana Screw, it can get you through Color Screw, and it attacks and blocks just fine if you need it. 11 total 2-drops, playing any of them early provides serious value for you. In the Servant's case, it basically puts you a turn ahead if it lives. So strong. Moving past 3-drops, because the Pummeler is the only 3-drop we're playing, Bristling Hydra is our staple 4-drop. I'm sure you've seen enough of this Hydra already, but the card is too good to pass up. 4 mana for a 4-3 is nothing to write home about, but it enters the battlefield with a whopping 3 energy, enough to pump itself and protect itself all at the same time. Bristling Hydra is nasty in the current meta of single targeted removal. This stupid beast is real difficult to remove, and not only for control decks, for everything. Think about what we're looking at right now. Mono red, more mono red, black green. There's a ton of single targeted removal, and it's all useless against the Hydra as long as you have 3 energy, which, let's be honest, won't be that difficult for you. Turn 2 Servant, turn 3 Bristling Hydra. Most decks can't answer that, at least not efficiently. Bristling Hydra is an MVP for sure. At the top of our curve, and the last creature in the deck, Glorybringer brings it home. It doesn't exactly help the energy train in any particular way, but this dragon is a powerful top end that can nuke most threats in the format right now with that Exert trigger, and comes out of nowhere with both flying and haste. We're not running a playset because our mana base can't handle 4-5 drops of this magnitude, but only a couple of them do the trick. The ability to annihilate a blocker against a deck like ours, invaluable. In addition to most of our creatures, we do have some spell assistance in producing energy. Attune with Aether is the only sorcery in this version of the deck, and it has 2 very important jobs. First, it guarantees that we get the lands we need, and they're the colors we want them to be. Supremely important. Second, we get 2 free energy. All of this incremental energy gain, it adds up. Attune with Aether is the perfect mana fixer for this deck, especially since we're running so few lands. We'll go over that in a bit. Regardless, mana fixing and energy, I'll take it every time. We're also running Harness Lightning because this card is bonkers in any type of energy deck. You do get 3 energy from it, but the ability to discharge as much energy as you want is what makes this valuable. You can go over the top, you can go under. If you're about to win the game, you can just use that 3 energy to power your Pummeler and get in for those last points of damage. Harness Lightning is a cheap, effective removal spell that has the flexibility this deck needs to succeed. Now, Electrostatic Pummeler is the centerpiece of this strategy. The ability is the basket we're putting most of our eggs in. The goal is to raise the Pummeler's power and toughness with spells and then double it. With this in mind, we're running a playset of Blossoming Defense, an excellent card for this strategy and easily one of the reasons the Pummeler itself is so strong. Remember, our little construct starts as a 1/1. With 1 Blossoming Defense, it's now a 3/3 and it has hexproof, effectively removing most options your opponent has to disrupt what you're about to do. Once it has hexproof or you're sure the coast is clear, Invigorated Rampage, a full playset. This is the card that ends games. This is the ace up your sleeve. Remember, the Pummeler gets boosted based on its power. You give your Pummeler +4/+0, even if you've done nothing to it up to that point, it's now a 5/1. And then with its own ability, it becomes a 10/6. That's a single spell and single activation. And I think we both know that one activation of the Pummeler isn't all that you'll be able to manage. And it has Trample now. How about a Blossoming Defense and Invigorated Rampage? It becomes a 3/3 with hexproof, then a 7/3 with hexproof, then you put 3 energy into it, and boom, a 14/10. This is just the definition of explosive. This is what wins you games. Totally absurd. And if all this wasn't enough, if the giant construct wasn't enough for you at 10 power or 14 or even 5 or 7 or whatever, we're running Fling. For when you've already bashed your opponent in the face for 10 damage with a Trampler, you can then chuck that Pummeler right at their face and end the game on the spot. This version of the deck functions at instant speed and wins games out of nowhere most every time. Cards like Fling, they dumpster your opponents, surprise them, catch them with their pants down. It's a crazy strategy. The last non-land card in the deck is a Braid, obviously. This is simply one of the most powerful cards in Standard right now. It does everything. It wrecks most creatures in the format at instant speed, and if it can't do that, it can destroy robots. A nice Swiss Army knife for the deck, great against mono red, vehicles, monument, most any strategy right now. It's a solid include. We're only running 20 lands, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but with 4 Attune with Ether and 3 Servant of the Conduit, it ends up working out just fine. The average converted mana cost in the deck is around 2, so we're good. As far as specifics go for non-basics, the deck runs a playset of Ether Hub for energy and color fixing awesomeness, Sheltered Thicket, also a playset, fixes and you can cycle it late if you don't need it, and 2 Hashep Oasis because you know what the Pummeler needs? More pump spells. The deck can afford to run a few of these, so why not? Give some extra reach when you're trying to win the game. Alongside 6 forests and 4 mountains, 20 lands in total, it's a thing of beauty. We've covered versions of this energy deck in the past, but this is certainly the best version out there for what we're dealing with in Standard right now. The entire deck runs at instant speed, minus Attune with Ether and the Oasis ability. The increased focus on instant speed pump spells is what needs to be done to deal with the instant speed meta. Blossoming Defense and Invigorated Rampage are designed to win the game out of nowhere and force your opponent to quote-unquote have it. In addition to the Pummeler's crazy power, the rest of the creature base just happens to be of a stupidly high caliber. Your opponent has to worry about the Pummeler, sure, but they also have to worry about your Voltaic Brawler, the 3/2 for 2 mana, or your Long-Tusked Cub, or I don't know, the Bristling Hydra, one of the best positioned creatures in Standard right now. And even if they can find a way to deal with all of that, you come over the top with Glorybringer. There are no filler cards in this deck. Each spell, each creature, they all have a role to play. They're all impactful. All of these cards are threats. This version of the green-red Pummeler deck is a bomb waiting to explode. You want volatile? This is volatile. Now, if you're going to build this, which you should because it's basically pennies for a tier 1 competitive deck, you're going to need some sideboard suggestions. Luckily, those are pretty simple. Magma Spray is a 2 or 3 of, comes in against mono red and zombies. You don't want Kenros coming back from the yard, you don't want Dread Wanderers coming back from the yard. Also, sideboard a few of Braid. If you're against vehicles, you're going to want the additional hate. If you find yourself up against a deck that doesn't interact all that well, as in lacks instant speed removal, then Larger Than Life can come in. This is an incredibly powerful pump spell in this deck, but we prioritized instant speed to deal with reactive strategies. Larger Than Life is great against clunky ridiculousness. And then sideboarding a few Ether Sphere Harvester is a wonderful way to sneak up on mono red aggro decks. This card's almost impossible for them to get through without using a Braid. If this sticks for a turn or two, you halt them in their tracks and you gain some life out of the deal. Hot dog, that's a great card. Here are the facts. Green-Red Pummeler can stand against the best decks out there. It's super fun to play. Literally none of it rotates in September, and you can buy it all for $20 on Magic Online. A rotation-proof Tier 1 deck. How are more people not talking about this? Honestly, let me know what you think about the deck. If you're looking for a top strategy that survives rotation and doesn't cost $1 billion, this is that deck. This is everything you've always wanted. Again, if you want to see the list or purchase any of the cards for it on Magic Online, be sure to click the first link in the description. Just a crazy cheap deck. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
What?